Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bridget Morris, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. I talk about things that are specific carbohydrate diet friendly, but in today's video, I'll be putting that aside and I will be talking about intestinal blockages. So if you follow my channel, you know that I have Crohn's disease, but I was originally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I tried everything that there was to help alleviate symptoms and heal, and nothing worked. So I had to get an emergency surgery, get a total colectomy and an ileostomy. But because at the time I still was considered to have ulcerative colitis, they allowed me to have a JPouch, and then I was re-diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So intestinal blockages are part of my life. I have them in the past year. I've had about 4, and in the previous year I've had about 2. So because I have a JPouch, my blockages happen in the small intestine. And if ever you've had any blockages, you know that they are very painful and they are not fun whatsoever. In today's video, I go over things that I personally do in order to alleviate the pains and to help the blockage go through. So I am by no means a physician, a doctor, or trained professionally, but I'm hoping that this video will be helping others that are having this issue to maybe alleviate pain or, make the process easier and better for you. I will always recommend you talking to your doctor when you have an obstruction, because they will know your history and what is best for you to treat the situation and yourself. So I've decided to separate this video into 4 parts. The first part is how to avoid obstruction in the first place / what caused it. The second part is going to be how do I know I have an obstruction? And the third part is going to be what I do to alleviate the pain and help the blockage go through. And the last part would be what do I do once the blockage has passed? So if you want to learn about intestinal blockages, please keep watching. So how to avoid them in the first place. I know that there's already a lot of information on the internet out there explaining how to avoid them in the first place, but based on my personal experience, it's always been a combination of these 2 things. 1, dehydration, and 2, not chewing your food properly. So dehydration, I'm actually really bad for that. I do make a conscious effort of drinking water, but sometimes it just slips my mind. And also sometimes there are exterior factors that affect it. So the weather will do it, whether you're changing weather from winter to summer, summer to winter, or when you're traveling a lot, which that's what I do. When you're in the airplane, it sucks the moisture. And so that's going to be a big factor. And then the other thing, when you're not chewing your food properly, when you put your food in your mouth, that's the pre-digestion. You're masticating it, you're using your teeth to shred the meat and shred the big chunks, so it'll help it to go through the intestine. So to help avoid those 2 things from happening, I always carry a water bottle with me at all times. It's always with me in the car or in the purse. And then also, in order to help me chew my food properly, I can make a conscious effort of cutting my food into smaller pieces, because if ever I am, out with my friends and I'm excited and I forget to chew, or maybe I'm really busy and I'm focusing on work or something, the smaller pieces of food will actually be easier to pass through the system. So how I know an obstruction is on its way. I actually have 3 symptoms that I've discovered. So the first one is my body is actually telling me. So I start getting this discomfort. That's probably the best way that I could describe it. It's in like my lower abdomen, and it's kind of like the same kind of pain that you get when you're hungry. It's like kind of like that, like, oh, it's like a cramp, but it's not a cramp. It's like, it's that feeling. And I actually used to mistake it for that feeling in the beginning, and I would think, oh, I need to eat, and I would start eating, which was the complete opposite of what I'm supposed to do. So first sign, I get this discomfort in my lower abdomen, and that's actually where I had my ileostomy, which leads into the second point, is my obstructions are always in the same spot, and that is where the ileostomy was. So there's obviously scar tissue, and so sometimes the food will get lodged. And the third sign is my stomach starts to look bloated. It looks big and it's hard. So the first thing you should do if you know that you have an obstruction is contact your doctor. Please let them know that you are going through an obstruction, because it can be really dangerous. So when you have an obstruction, thankfully for me, they've always been partial, which means that the food can still kind of go through. If you have a full obstruction, and then there's like zero passage. So you have two options. One, you can go to the hospital, or two, you can stay home and try to help it to go through by yourself. If you go to the hospital, which I have been to the hospital before, every time they basically hooked me up to an IV and gave me some saline water, and they gave me pain medication, and basically just waited for it to go through, because again, it was a partial, I didn't need any surgery. Or the other option is you can stay home and try to just let it pass through. I would suggest you doing that if it's an obstruction that is not as bad, but if it's really, really bad, then by all means, please go to the hospital. However, there may be times that you may not have access to a hospital. So like I said, I do travel a lot for work, and sadly to say, a lot of my obstructions actually happened abroad, overseas, and I was in a country where they didn't speak English, and maybe certain techniques were not as advanced, and so maybe you're a little weary of going to the hospital. And so the following techniques are things that I do to try to alleviate the pain and help the blockage go through. So the first thing I do, hands down for sure, is I stop eating, because whatever food that I put in through is going to have to go through out the other way, and that's just going to be causing more pressure and more pain. Now, in the earlier stages of my block, I'm still in a discomfort. I'm not really in extreme pain. So I have options in order to help alleviate the pain and then help the blockage go through. So I have 10 options that I like to follow. So the first thing I do is I try to drink as much fluid as I can. And it could be water, it could be maybe hot tea with honey. And the reason I do that is because later on throughout the blockage, I'm going to be throwing up and I'm going to be, really sick. So it's going to be really hard for me to stay hydrated. And water to the body is like oil to an engine. It helps to lubricate things, and it helps to let things go through quicker and faster. So when I'm at the peak of my blockage, so when I'm in a lot of pain, I like to do a handful of things. So one of them would be putting a heat compress on my stomach. So it's like a bean bag, and I put it in the microwave for a minute and a half, and I just put it on my stomach in the area of that my blockage is. If I'm abroad and I don't have a bean bag handy with me, I just like to take my hands and I just like put them over the blockage area, so the heat created with the hands will create some kind of similar feeling as a beanbag. The second option is, luckily for us, we have a massage chair, and if you have accessibility to a massage chair, I would highly suggest that, just because the vibrations of it, and ours actually has heat as well, it kind of moves things around and it can help delodge the obstruction. The third thing, and this is a favorite, is a hot bath. So again, what I'm trying to do by the heat is I want to relax the body. So for me, I found personally in all methods, lying down is the best position for me. I can't really be sitting in a chair per se. I mean, the massage chair, I'm leaning in a certain way, so I'm kind of like not really sitting up that way. But being in a hot bath really helps to relax the body, and it helps to alleviate some of the pain. So that's really a bonus. That's a good one. The fourth option is I like to rub my back. So I try to bring my hands as high as I can on my upper back, and I bring my hands in a downward motion. I don't rub upwards, I always rub downwards, and I bring my hands up and I always rub down. And I do that on my lower back, and then I also do that on my sides. A fifth option that you have is rubbing your stomach in a counterclockwise direction. And the reason I do that is because it goes with the flow of the direction going into the JPouch. So I just rub around, not necessarily on the obstruction itself, but around it. And I just do circles over and over and over again. And I feel as though that really helps to soothe things. Now, the sixth option is massaging. So again, laying down. So I take my hands and I go around the obstruction itself and I just massage. I kind of try to poke things, move things around a little bit, hoping that it will delodge the obstruction or help the flow of it. Now, the seventh option is, like I said, I prefer to be lying flat, but you can move around in different positions. So you can stay on your back, you can roll over on the right side, roll over on the left side, and maybe go into the child's pose. Another position for me, and it might sound really silly, but I like to hang upside down. Like I go on the edge of the bed and I just hang off of it. And I feel as though, again, that just helps to move things around, you know, like maybe delodge it and help it. An eighth option that I found that really helps is walking around. Obviously, not briskly, you just want to walk around the house and maybe crouch down and stand up. But by walking around, you're going to be basically stimulating the muscles around the stomach and just like trying to let things go through. And last but not least, a ninth option that I have is to sip water. Don't drink water, sip water. And if you have issues drinking the water, you can always take ice chippets and just like suck on that, because then it avoids having a big gulp of water going down. And the reason I say that is because for me, when I'm at my peak of my obstruction, I get very, very nauseous and I throw up. And to be completely honest, and it sounds really bad to say, but I actually do look forward to the moment that I throw up, because the food that would go through the stomach and cause more pain and more pressure on the obstruction area is just basically ejected. So it alleviates a lot of the pressure, but the downfall is it also creates with the body the need of always throwing up. So unfortunately, every 45 minutes, I get up and I have to throw up. And for some reason, my obstructions always end up happening afternoon, early evening. And so my peak of my obstruction always like in the middle of the night. So I know that I will probably have a sleepless night or a horrible night. So usually after I throw up, I try to take a sip of water and then I try to go back to sleep. And then 45 minutes later, I end up throwing up again. And that usually ends up being the water that I'm throwing up, because at one point I have nothing else in my stomach. But I know that there is part of that water that it is absorbed, and that's really what you want, because like I said, water to the body is like oil to an engine. You need the lubrication as much as you can, and when you are throwing up, you are losing a lot of fluids. And the reason you had the obstruction in the first place is because you were dehydrated. So with all that combined, it's just not a good scenario. So now that the obstruction has passed, I like to reintroduce food into my diet, because again, the first thing I do when I know it's coming on, I stop eating, and my obstructions can last 12 hours to sometimes 24 hours. And so if I haven't eaten that long, my body is starting to lose energy. So sometimes I'll wake up the next day and it's like as if the obstruction never happened, like I'm in zero pain. And sometimes when it's really severe, I'm going to be very sore and very tired. And so I don't want to be just jumping in with putting more food, because you're kind of afraid that the blockage is kind of still there and you don't want it to be happening again. So usually I try to be very careful. The first thing I do is I try to go on a liquid diet. So either I'm going to be juicing, or I'm going to be drinking my bone broth, which I have a recipe on my channel for. I also can be eating my yogurt, homemade yogurt, which I also have another recipe for that as well. And I also want to be drinking lots of water, a lot of water, because again, I have been so dehydrated. And if you want to be adding electrolytes to your diet, then that's fine as well. So yeah, just hydrate yourself. The second part is when I feel comfortable adding like mushy foods into the diet. So it could be like applesauce, or maybe like steamed vegetables that you mash up so well so it becomes like baby food, maybe jams. So anything that is very easy to eat and consume, and so it becomes more of a pace to go through. And then as you feel more confident and comfortable, then you can start introducing harder foods. And there you go, guys. That is all about obstructions. I hope that you liked this video and that it was informative, and hopefully it will help you in your next obstruction to help alleviate the pain and to help the blockage go through. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And also feel free to share this video to other people that you feel will benefit from it. So thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.